It struck me as we read through Psalm 55, David in verse 4 says, "My heart is sore pained within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling are come upon me, and horror hath overwhelmed me." Certainly David, a man after God's own heart, knew the reality that life was hard. He followed the Lord. He led a great deliverance of the nation, which led to the king that he wanted to serve, King Saul, seeking his life. And all sorts of other hardships and difficulties came upon David. Now it seems here in Psalm 55 that he's dealing with some people who have come against him and are attacking him and attacking the people of God. But it struck me that verses 4 and 5 could be a statement made in any situation. The situations that we face that are terrifying, where fearfulness and trembling are come upon us. In verse 6, David expresses what I think is maybe often some of the desires of our hearts. "And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then I would fly away and be at rest." David cries, if I had the wings of a dove, I would just fly. I would just remove myself from this situation, and I would go, verse 7, and then would I wander far off and remain in the wilderness. That he would go, he would be away, he would be apart, he would just remove himself from the situation. You know, that's our temptation. Especially with all the wealth and technology around us, we want every situation to have an instant solution. There's that desire that is there. And in this case, he does what men of God, what women of God, what the people of God must do. He cries out to the Lord. He asks for the Lord to defeat his enemies. He can't run from the problem. He can't remove himself. It has to be dealt with. And so he asks for God to deal with it. And then he says, verse 16, "As for me, I will call upon the Lord, and the Lord shall save me." Again, his situation, unique, but this would apply to all situations, that this is what we must do in this face of trouble. "Evening and morning," he says in verse 17, "and at noon I will pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He hath delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me. For there are many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, because he abideth of old. Selah." David had a confidence that God would deliver him. In this particular case, would deliver him by defeating his enemies. And certainly God sometimes delivers us that way. Not only David, but I think of King Hezekiah and the great victory that the angel of the Lord wrought in one night, wiping out the troops. Other times, the deliverance is much longer and protracted. Not necessarily delivering us out of it, but delivering us through it. You think of Daniel's 3 friends that walked through the fire, the Lord preserving them. As we turn back to James chapter 1, verse 2 is a beautiful verse. But wow, is it difficult to live out. All commands of Scripture are difficult. They are certainly not our default setting. "Count it all joy, my brethren. Consider it great joy when you face trials of various kinds, of diverse natures, various natures, that life is hard and you'll face many trials." And he goes on to exhort us to let patience or steadfastness have its full effect. Not just removing us out of the trial, but delivering us through it. And as we considered last week, God is going to use that in our lives.